Well, with the switch is now wired in, and everything is wired, including the battery eliminator. And so, of course, everything is still loose here. So the final steps before we put the back on this is to maybe put a piece of plastic on the back metal. And the reason I want to do that is because when I put the backing on the circuit, there is a chance that this thing might move depending upon how tightly you built it, and it might short to the aluminum chassis. And so we want to put maybe a little bit of insulation there. I don't necessarily mount this in any way. I suppose you could button it with maybe a couple globs of the adhesive that I'm going to use, but I really don't find it necessary because it's wired in pretty rigidly. As you can see, even with me shaking it violently, that circuit board is not moving. But I still don't want it, just in case, to touch the back. And so to do that, what I did was I took just a piece of blister pack. This is a throwaway. I mean, this is to something that you typically toss. You can use a piece of cardboard as well. I use this because it's easy to trace. I take the back and I put this on there, and then I just draw the outline of what I want to cut, and then I just go ahead and cut that out manually. But there's nothing that says you can't use a piece of cardboard. And that would work just as well. It'd be a little bit more difficult to trace out. So next time you have one of these pieces of plastic, instead of throwing it out, you might want to consider keeping it. I've used the disposable salad trays that you get when you buy salad, pre-mixed salads, or again, this was a pack to something else that is packaging that's typically thrown away. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing out now, and we're just going to use the tracings that I put together and just quickly cut this out. Alright, so as you can see, now we have the piece of plastic cut out, and it fits quite well in there. And so to finish off the chassis, what I'm going to do is use my adhesive. Now I use this Dow Corning 3145 RTV. RTV stands for room temperature vulcanized. It's a type of silicone. It's different though than the silicone that you typically get at the hardware store. This is a military grade silicone. Now I've just been in the habit of using this, and it's one of the nicest workable types of adhesives out there. I use it for an adhesive, not so much as a sealant. It doesn't have any smell, and it's not corrosive in any way. It's up to you what you want to use. Epoxy would work, but I find that this works very well for me, and so there you go. Here's one of my little secrets out there. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm just going to take my sealant. I'm going to just go ahead and maybe put a couple globs of this. And notice that it's gray, so that it actually blends in very well with the chassis. So just very little is all you need. It's very strong and easy to work with. And so just those 4 little blobs there, and we can go ahead and put that on as such. So there you go. And then over here, what I want to do is glue in the battery. And so we're going to pull the battery out, and the battery holder, I should say. And so once again, we're going to put some of the silicone adhesive on the back side of this thing. You can go a little bit more liberally with this one because it's inset, so it has to be thick enough to you know, give that gap enough adhesive to fill in between the standoffs, which you can see right here, and the flat chassis. And so with that adhesive on there, we're going to go ahead and position our battery holder. Now you can put it wherever you like, so you know, it's really not that critical. And so in about an hour, give it an hour or two to set up, then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to mount this thing on there, and we're done. And so that concludes the assembly and testing of the Bulldog face fuzz. We'll go ahead and do a final inspection and put the knobs on here in just a few minutes. Well, we've got the back on the pedal now, and really we're good to go. At this point, the pedal is essentially complete. What I want to do now is put some knobs on the potentiometers. Now, one thing that I do is, since I repair a lot of stuff and I run into a lot of old equipment, if I'm ever salvaging any equipment, I always save the knobs that go on that old stuff, because I know that someday I'm going to need them. And so here we are. And so I like the vintage look of some of these old knobs, because I think it goes well with projects like this. And really, it's up to you. But that's why I save those old knobs. I throw them in a Ziploc bag. And so I've kind of thought, well, with the ones that I have and the type of chassis I have right here, I think I like these. These came off an old receiver that was salvaged some time ago. And so depending upon the diameter of that internal hole, you're going to have to decide which one works. If it seems too loose, what you could do is you could put a little bit of that sealant on the hole, and then push the potentiometers down, or excuse me, the knobs down in the pots, and let it set up, and it should work just fine. The ones that I have here all seem to work pretty good. So I've chosen these, and I'm going to go ahead and just press these on, and to give it that finished look. And I have all the knobs right now counterclockwise in their smallest position. And so here we go. So there is the finished product, and we got nice movement, and I think that with that look, it kind of finishes it off, gives it that vintage vibe, if you will, you know. And so here's the final unit, fully assembled, as you can see, with everything in place. And you know, you could, I suppose, etch the back of this thing as well if you wanted to, but really the final step is to go ahead and turn it on and give it its full test. Well, it's time to go ahead and test the Bulldog face pedal. So right now we have the pedal off. As you can see, the LED is not on. We've got our guitar coming in here, our output to the Roland microcube I have there. I could have used the Bulldog amp, but I decided to use that because it had a little bit more output. And so with the pedal off, we would expect to have clean tones, direct interface between input and output, and so as if the pedal was not even there. So the positions of the potentiometers and so forth should make absolutely no difference. And so then after we do that, obviously we want to turn it on and test and make sure that our distortion is working the way that we expect it to. And so let's go ahead and try it. Let's put the pedal down and expect to see some clear tones out of this. It sounds pretty clean. Now let's go ahead and try it with the distortion. We're going to push the pedal on. You can see here that the purple LED is coming on, which tells us that the distortion pedal is actually working. We've got the sustain at halfway, the tone at halfway, and the volume at a quarter. So let's just check it out. Sounds about right. So that's pretty good distortion. Let's crank up the sustain to full. We'll play a chord. So you can hear that it sustains for quite a while. Not bad. Now if we go ahead and crank the volume all the way, you can see that it gets pretty loud. I like to keep the volume at about a quarter, which gives us about the same output as we had before when we had the clean output. And so at this point we can say, hey, our Bulldog face is working correctly and that we're happy with it. And so I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you got something out of this and related it back to the labs that we do in EET 211. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Whether you're a person that likes to build distortion pedals like the Bulldog face, or if you're a student of mine and want to understand that what we do in lab goes beyond what you might think we do. If you're a prospective student that's thinking about coming to Ferris State University, I'd be glad to give you one of our Bulldog amplifier kits. This particular one was made to become a guitar amplifier. All you have to do is come out and see us, and I'd be glad to give you one. Take care and have fun, and rock on.